Kate Milfalcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Helen. This is video number 3 in our look at the book, The Spirits Book by Allan Kardec. This is a study, an explanation of Spiritism, and go back and watch videos 1 and 2 over the past couple of weeks to give you a sense of what's going on here. We're actually still in the introduction to the book. 3 videos later, we're in the explanatory notes and explanatory notes. Can't even speak anymore. Close to the end of this section of the book. I don't think this will be a terribly long video. And then we will move on to the body of the book, chapter 1, and I will have some help with that, which should be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. And let's just move forward. This is the 10th part of the explanatory notes. Some arguments to consider. And he is an apologist for Spiritism. He's taking all the arguments that criticize mediumship and spirits, etc., and meeting those arguments with his own defense of the situation. So let's continue in this. The language of spirits is not always elevated. So what he's saying here is, if you're expecting grand proclamations from the 5th dimension or something, no, we're talking about a variety of spirits. He said the spirits have said that they're not all equal in either knowledge or moral value. And you can't take all of them at face value. And in that sense, that's sort of something of an explanation for being misled, getting messages that are not right, or frivolous, stupid stuff. In some cases, inquirers are taken advantage of by imperfect spirits. So you get somebody who's not fully in command of their mediumship, and they're calling a connection that they don't really know how to control, how to be the master of the situation. Not all people, he says, this is his, he's making an example. Not all people can be judged by the behavior or the words of like a street gang. You can't make blanket statements about all human beings based on a little group of people. Spirits are disincarnate souls. They're people too. Spirits are people too. And they come in the wide range, just as people do. For example, travelers can't judge a city by one bad suburb. And then it says, don't stay in the suburbs. And I'm assuming that, I'm jumping to the conclusion, this was written in the 1850s. Maybe the suburbs were not what they became in the 1950s. I don't know. He quotes Jesus here. He says, having eyes doesn't necessarily guarantee that you see. And ears, but will not hear. That quote from the Bible. And some argue this is diabolical or deception. The demons are interacting with people. He says, well, if so, sometimes the devil is very wise and reasonable and morally good. If all mediumship is toying with the devil, sometimes the devil takes the opposite side of the devil's side. It's certainly bad spirits are a possibility. He doesn't deny that, he says, but a spirit community in general does exist with all the variations you can imagine. He argues that it can only be with the permission of God that all of this communication happens, and therefore it's not for harmful reasons. Now, this is his opinion. I would argue with that, and there's going to be a moment here down the road when we discuss these sorts of things. Some people argue, well, I mean, how can you believe this? It's like people who do past life regressions. Everybody was Napoleon Bonaparte or Cleopatra. Yeah, not me, I promise. Some people say, well, when mediums do their thing, only the famous people come through from history. And he says this is not true. He did hundreds of hours of mediumship work with people and himself over his lifetime. And he said almost all of them were unknown. It's rare. However, it makes sense that great people with a huge impact on earth would be great spirits and would possibly feel obligated to communicate. Why would they bother to deal with us? That's the next question that people argue. Why, once you're dead, would you want to be dealing with people on earth? And he says, there's nothing surprising here. The power and consideration of an individual may have possessed in this life guarantee no privilege in the spirit world. The spirits have confirmed the gospel passage, quote, "The last will be first and the first will be last." As it concerns rank in the spirit world, someone who was first on earth may be one of the last in the next world. The person before whom everyone bowed during one life may find him or herself beneath the humblest artisan in the next. Spiritism predisposes reincarnation. The most powerful leaders, in fact, may be lower than the lowest of their subjects from one lifetime to a next. He says there is a phenomenon where lesser spirits can borrow illustrious names. And he said, to be realistic, it's hard or impossible to settle a claim of identity. Complete certainty is difficult. That is really true. In other words, you don't know who you're talking to. Not for sure. He says it's easier if we knew the person in life. So it's actually easier to validate or verify messages from spirits if the spirits are just ordinary folks, which contradicts the belief that all spirits are, Napoleon or Cleopatra. He says, no, it's the housemaid that was in your house for 30 years. It's your grandmother. It's the guy that sold the newspapers on the corner. These are the people that they often find have something to say. And it makes it easier if you know who they were. And we don't all know Napoleon and Cleopatra. So they use handwriting in these sessions that he did to identify people. And it was astounding. They would get an illiterate medium who under trance would write as a person that was known to the group, not to the medium. So you have an illiterate medium who doesn't know who he or she is speaking with, and they write things down as messages from spirit, and the handwriting is identical to the spirit they claim to be. That's interesting. We don't know. We can't see. We're not handwriting experts. Who knows? But this is what he's saying. Spirits must rise. I can't read my handwriting. Must rise to some certain degree of purification. Some degree of purification to be free of material influence. So I think what he's saying here is that if you're going to be dealing with the spirit, there has to have been a little bit of enlightenment going on after the death of the physical body. They may not be far down the road, but they're a little farther than they were when they were alive. The closer they are to the material world, the more they retain all the ideas and mannerisms, etc., of earth. And this is not a temporal thing. Time has no meaning. So it's not like, oh, you've only been dead 10 minutes, so what do you know? As opposed to you've been dead for 6 years, you're probably really wise now. It doesn't work that way. Time is a construct of our physical existence. It's got to do with evolution, and that's a whole different concept. However, people who have been dead for a very long time, you can probably look at their language, their use of words, the character of what they say to determine the level of their advancement. it's less likely that you're going to encounter really malicious and immature spirits. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I'm playing, sorry, devil's advocate, because there are poltergeists, there are ghosts, let's call them that, tied to locations, who get pleasure seemingly from torturing people, scaring people, interacting with people when the people are not interested. But I think it's important to keep in mind that tied to the material world is the clue there. They're still attached to a location. They're not working on their evolution. Advanced spirits, he said, advanced in the sense of evolved. They don't tend to lie. They have ethics. They're beyond that kind of thing. Then he said something I thought was really interesting. Similar levels of spirits congregate in large groups. So you're kind of stuck with your peers, your spiritual peers. A spirit from a group of advanced spirits may be sent by a better known spirit as a representative, even if we don't know them. So they pick a spokesperson, maybe, perhaps to eliminate that sense of, oh, the mighty are speaking. Hard to say. They might even present themselves as advanced entities that we're familiar with, even if they aren't, to establish a rapport. So they're misleading people, but they're misleading people in the service of getting us to pay attention. It's not a matter if it doesn't matter if they carry the same moral excellence. It's about the quality of their spiritual evolution. Names are earthly constructs. That's the thing. We're not talking about people who are dead. We're talking spirits who have moved on, and it's a subtle difference. Names on earth are secondary in spirit communication. It doesn't matter what your name was, because that's just one of many lifetimes. It says there's serious difficulty sometimes when a spirit will assume a false name, because it can lead to errors in assumption of the human people who hear it. Not all spirits agree on some views. That's kind of interesting. I see spirits fighting each other, They differ in knowledge. They differ in moral intelligence. They differ in the level of evolution. My bird, when she hears my voice, she starts making that beeping noise. I'm sorry. I'm used to it, and I don't even pay attention to it, but I'm more aware of it when I'm recording, and I can see where, there she goes again. Might be annoying. Anyway, a difference in moral intelligence or knowledge, it reflects the level of advancement of the spirit, and they may be at odds with each other because they're on different levels. The same as on earth, he says. More factors affect spirits and the nature of the spirits and the things that they say, not just their level. The Spiritist doctrine is immense. It requires deep study, physical, metaphysical, and social. And we will be digging into it in this book. And I haven't read it. I've been saving it to really dig into it piece by piece. So this is going to be an interesting journey. It requires much time to develop the understanding of the principles. Scientists can disagree on methods, methodologies, but share the fundamentals in the same way that spiritism, spiritists, and spirits are the same. Grammar is an example, and I thought that was very pithy and put a big exclamation point after it, and I don't remember why. It's been a while since I read this, but we'll be returning to a lot of this. And the answers people get when they do a mediumship, they do a trance state, they communicate with spirit, the answers they get depend on how the questions are framed, and I think we're all familiar with that in other divination. So the soul, the word soul is used differently by humans. We talked about that, and spirits. But God is always God. There's the basics. And we're going to talk about God in the first chapter. That's a loaded word. We'll get to it. Spirits progress from the lowest to the highest. They evolve. And how they're classified depends on who's doing the classification. Systems may differ, but the fundamentals stay the same. Therefore, the contradictions aren't always really contradictions. They're just semantics. Spirits don't always spell correctly, but the idea is everything, and the form is nothing. So he's answering critiques. Well, if they're spirits and they're so knowledgeable, why did they misspell that word? Well, spirits use telepathic communication. Writing is a chore. If you don't have a body, it's a little bit of a problem. Writing is an inconvenience. They can dictate perfect poems. People who were illiterate in their lives will dictate through a medium perfect poetry. And it comes out telepathically. It's very interesting. Some people are afraid of spirits. They'll, and of course, keep in mind now when this was written in the 1850s, some people will point to other people with mental difficulties and say it's because of spirits. So what are we talking about? We're talking about like The Exorcist, you know. But he says there are plenty of many mentally ill people in every field of life, and should we get rid of those fields of life? Should we get rid of spiritism and mediumship? Because maybe once in a while you'll encounter somebody who's a little off balance. It doesn't mean every single person involved is off balance. I think this is an answer to a criticism during his time. Well, all people who believe in this are mentally unwell. He says, like strenuous sports, you can get involved in spiritism. Excuse me. It can injure a weak person. Spirits work can be difficult and really affect negatively a mentally frail person. A person with predisposition may suffer from the pursuit of anything. It wouldn't have to be you don't seem stable because you're involved in spiritism. It wouldn't matter what they got involved in. They would take it to an extreme or have problems. Spiritism provides context for life, context that can help mentally frail people establish a balance. It can be a source of strength and consolation. I don't know why I'm coughing. It's probably spring. Sorry about that. And my coffee is ice cold. It's cold today. Fear can cause mental illness. Now, this is his opinion, YouTube. I'm not making any kind of medical declarations. Spiritism rises above superstition. So does spiritism cause paranormal phenomena? Which came first, the chicken or the overpriced egg? Is this phenomenon the result of self-hypnosis? Mediums go into trance, and then do they cause the phenomena? Mediums disagree. They say that what they do is put themselves in a state of consciousness that is easier for spirits to connect with. And I remember Dolores Cannon talked about this quite a bit. I don't necessarily 100% agree with everything she said, but I think she said a lot of very interesting things. And one of them was that it's very difficult. Once you are disincarnate, you are now without a body, you're in the spirit world, you are a much higher vibration. And there are relative levels, of course. You don't start out at the highest. Well, you might if you're Gandhi or somebody, but you're vibrating at a different rate than the three-dimensional world does. And to communicate with living people is very difficult because we're slow vibrating. We're tied the material, and it's hard for spirits to make that connection. So mediums are able to put themselves into an altered state of consciousness that's elevated above the slow vibration of incarnate existence. The medium draws the phenomenon or phenomena out of the ether or the people around them. But mediums often provide information that's unknown to anybody present during the session. So he said, each of these theories that the phenomena is the result of self-hypnosis, or the phenomena is created by the medium, or the medium draws it from the people. All of these are theories created by people. Nobody has a definitive answer yet. Spirits say the phenomena are from spirits. So that clears that up. Sometimes spirits refuse to give facts that the people in the room do know. That's interesting. Usually it's because the question is too trivial to be bothered with. They want to consider more serious subjects. And I think I've talked about this before. I'll give you an example. My husband and I were having a little fun evening with friends, sitting around, joking around, and they pulled out a Ouija board. It was just the four of us. And, we were doing different combinations of people on the Ouija board. When my husband and I did it together, it suddenly started spelling things out. And he was completely freaked out and kept telling me, stop pushing the thing. You're doing that. You're making it move. And I said, I swear to God, I'm not making it move. So it spelled out this elaborate story about a man who had a car dealership just up the road from where we were, dead, but in life, and had lived a while ago, several decades previous to the time we're talking about. And just names and addresses and dates and streets, and just went on and on and on with all these facts. And, we were having a cocktail, and but we thought this was just hilarious, and we were very shortly going to be getting married. So we started asking about how long will we be married, how many children will we have, and it's got mad, and it started saying F you, F you, F you, and then flew off the board. My husband got visibly pale. And that last time I used a Ouija board. So they don't want to be tortured often with frivolous things. They want serious knowledge to be passed on. Why do spirits come and go at will and ignore our entreaties? Why can we not just say, oh, I want to talk to my grandmother? Well, they're there. They hear you. They would respond if you were in the right frame of mind. But they can also assert their own independence. They might be doing something better. It's not like they just sit around waiting to be called. Skeptics often have a poor knowledge of facts around a situation. They don't fully understand the theories around spirits and spiritism, and so they jump to a lot of conclusions. And there's a real need to meditate on the teachings of this, on this information. So that now he's going to talk about some more, definitions of terms. Nature is on the earth three-dimensional in a continuous chain. Crude matter is humans. And humans, he's talking about evolution of nature of matter on earth. And you have nature, and then you have crude matter, so something a little more substantial. Then you have humans, then you have God. So what's the chain? He says there's got to be other links. You don't just jump from the natural world to spirits. Well, actually, there are those who would disagree. But it's something interesting to think about. He's just saying, what if we put forward the theory that between nature and humans, there's spirit, and between humans and God, there's spirit. That makes the jump a little less scary, I think. Okay, that's the end of the introduction to the book. So the next time we get together about this, it will be about chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called The First Cause, and part 1 is called The First Cause. So source, God, the origin, we're going to find out. Chapter 1 is called God and the Infinite. So this ought to be very, very interesting. I hope that you're enjoying this. This is heavy duty stuff. I'm learning it as I go along, so you may need to correct me. That's fine. Let me know if you like this. I appreciate the feedback because I don't want to be bothering people with something they're not interested in. Of course, you don't have to watch it, but still, like to provide content that interests people. So thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for being contemplative. Thank you for being willing to look inward and think big thoughts. Slán go fóill. Slán.